You know, I sure do love these doors. I mean, they're great in my realm. Doors are great in my realm, but over here, whole nother ball game. This one behind me, it's a great door. Love it. And this one over here, I love this one too. I especially love the way that they're both stuck shut and I can't open them or leave or go anywhere. Just stuck in this little room. So, I mean, it begs the question. I mean, why lock the doors? Doors are meant to be stepped through, are they not? Yet it appears these doors are locked and will remain locked. So why have doors at all if they're not being used for the purpose that they're, specifically designed for? I don't fucking know. We all have doors, literal and metaphorical, even. We lock our doors all the time. Sometimes to keep someone or something out, but other times to keep someone or something in. So I don't know. I guess doors can be locked. I don't know. You ever think we'll ever come up with something better though? I mean, better than doors, than the whole turn the knob, open, walk in. It just seems like so many steps. I feel like you come up with something better than that. Phase portals or something. Phase portals. You walk in, you phase portal into your house. Walk out, you phase portal. Hey, honey, I'm gonna phase portal to Sheets. Right? That's just I can't believe they. I don't know. Might make everyone real lazy or something. Have a full on Wall-E situation. Everyone's gonna get all fat. Everyone's gonna get all fat.
Congratulations. Here's a piping hot cup of joe.
What? Did you just make coffee materialize on that table?
Yeah, basically.
You could do that this whole time?
It is one of my sorcerer powers and your reward for a lesson learned.
So I learned something, and this is for me learning something?
Yes. What about this is hard for you to grasp? Jesus.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Sorcerer. I'll learn as many lessons as you fucking want if you keep giving me some of this shit.
Good. Those willing to learn will.
That's good. What kind is it?
Sorcerer's Blend.
In the still of the night, when the spells are all cast, it's time for the sorcerer to kick back and relax. The sorcerer's slumber. Here's a podcast in his head. No, I don't know why. He's magic. Just roll with it. Definitely, I know I've talked about this with a couple of the people that have been on here already, but this, the thought that I had the last day that I was on campus, I had no idea that was the last day that I would have spent the whole. I remember, I think Shane was like, "Do you want to get lunch?" I was like, "Nah, I want to go home and take a nap." So I could have just stayed. I could have hung out on campus that whole day. But obviously it was because it was before spring break.
Yeah.
I could never have predicted. I mean, there's no way that I could have known, but still, looking back, I definitely wish that I had. Again, there's no way I could have known, but I wish I would have hung out there. I could have. It's a weird thing because I wouldn't have been saying goodbye to people because I wouldn't have thought it was the last day that I was going to be there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just.
That's so hard though. No, it's definitely so hard though, and I was actually thinking about Remember the Beast, and I was actually thinking about this scene, towards the end where you're in your house. I kind of I mean, I feel like I could tell, or I don't know if it's on purpose, that it was kind of you're releasing it during this whole pandemic,
right.
Well, all these things happen, and now you're you kind of just left with this, and you're left with the consequence of your decision, and it's and I always like those kind of stories of thinking about what could have happened, even though at the end of the day in those kind of stories, like you were able to like go back and. But I think what's interesting is I feel like I like that you left it ambiguous of like replaying that first scene because it's like
Right.
I feel like at the end of the day, if you even, I feel like if that story almost went on, I feel like you can kind of imagine that the purpose would have been that you went back and you actually wouldn't have changed anything. Like what you
Right.
decided, like that was what you thought was like the right decision at the time. And that's
Yeah.
just like, how, that's just like how you like live life is like, doing what you think is right at the time. And so, yeah, it's
I
just
agree.
it's so interesting, especially like with this. I think the same thing of like the last time I saw like the last time I was just even like sitting in class in person. I'm like I almost
Right.
like take it for granted. I'm like
Exactly.
wow, just like being with everyone and like sitting and being
Right.
with a professor in person. Like
Yeah.
it's such a weird feeling. And I mean, especially like, for you, like I know that you're. I mean, I'm assuming like you're probably not going to go like for a master's or like continuing
Nah.
education. So it's like that really was like the last thing. Like
Right.
that really just
Right. Yeah, and I complained so much about having to get up, and be like, and I would gladly get
the
up for a 9
usual.
a.m. now. Like I would, like 9 a.m. feels so I was like, 9 in the morning. I want to get up that early now. I want to go sit in class. It was, yeah, it's definitely a weird. Well, it's funny though, about the Beast because I feel like I forget sometimes. I'm so used to uh during like the process of the second one, you were there and I was running, like, I was always telling you
Yeah.
like ideas. But with the third one, we weren't rooming together, so I didn't have that like option to like fill you in on what. So it's
Yeah.
I forget which people but the original, I talked to Shane about this, I think on one of these,
Yeah.
is like the original ending idea that we had was, I mean, it's insane. It was totally different. Because what
I'm just
happened?
imagining like so many crazy
Yeah,
ideas.
there was gonna be an entire musical number. There was literally gonna be a musical number, and
Wow.
we were recruiting people to come be dancers for the musical number, and it ended up, what's in the place of it is the much less intricate part where I'm just sitting on my front porch. I had to record that
Oh,
because
where I love that scene though. I love the music. I
that
remember
was
like
fun.
that was like the was that I don't know like yeah that was like you like the one of those flash like like, things or I don't know what it was called but like I really like that scene. I remember like thinking like dang and then like that picture of Clay.
Oh yeah,
Just-
yeah. I didn't even tell Clay about that because, like, when we were doing pretty good, like, keeping up with like the filming schedule and stuff, but we still had a lot to do. And then when the emails started coming through that they were closing down campus for an
yeah
extra, I was like, I
yeah
was starting to go, there's no way they're gonna reopen. There's no way. So then
yeah
I was in panic mode. So then I wrote a different version of the script that was just way way shorter, but kept some things intact. And then they
mm.
came out and said, "Yeah, we're not reopening." And I was like, "Oh, I mean, it was the right call, but obviously, but I was like,
You're
no."
yeah.
And I just had I literally I was
You
in,
should have been like, Mr. Helmer, I
yeah.
have an important film, and if you
This
don't reopen,
I'm gonna come to that campus and I'm gonna film you. But no, we what ended up happening was there's those scenes where we're at Shane's apartment where the mouth shows up. That we filmed all in one day. We filmed the stuff with the minder. That we filmed
oh
that
yeah,
all literally all in one day. The showdown at the end where we're talking, like, where we're like, "Did you get that?" And he's like, "The door's locked." We had to film that all in one day because it was like a couple days after they
oh
said,
my god,
yeah, there was a couple days after they said, like, we're not going back. So I was like, guys, we got
we
to film
have to.
something that can transition into something, to this new ending where I'm alone. That definitely wasn't. I like the way that it turned out, but it definitely wasn't the original idea. Because yeah, there was going to be an actual like musical showdown with the minder where there was people dancing and like a whole musical number, and he was going to be like, at the end, it was a similar like result where he's like, you guys, even though the song was going to be totally unrelated to what was actually going on, he was going to be
Yeah,
like, you guys have changed me, you've showed me, and we were going to be like, oh, okay, cool. and there was definitely going to be like a much better. There was like a flash forward. There was no time apocalypse at all. That wasn't even part of it. There was just going to be like a 6 month flash forward to where we
Oh, okay.
see that Devon and Clay successfully made their movie, their feature length movie. They're friends with Shane, so they let him help. Um, Clay and Shauna were gonna end up together. But except that she's just totally mean to him, and he's always like, "I love her, man. I love her." And I'm like, "She's
Oh no.
dude." And yeah, and then Mike was gonna get like a good little set where he was going to find a new stick of truth.
Oh.
And we were gonna be like, okay, well, good luck with that. Oh, and there was so much stuff we had to cut involving Mike because we were gonna find out why he
Yeah, I
has
was
these.
gonna. I was like imagining. I feel like
Exactly.
remember you mentioning that.
Right, because he was.
In the end of the second year or end of last year.
Yeah, he was gonna be. We were gonna find out that he is an alchemist, or a member of the League of Alchemists or something, which is like exists only in Berea, and he was gonna be.
Only.
He's like, I'm a member of the League of Alchemists, and we were gonna find out that he knows all about the time crystal, because why not?
Oh,
Um,
you would have connected the first one like in his scene somehow with like
yeah,
what
well,
happened?
it would have just been like, I don't know if it would have connected it, but it would have just been like, oh, this is why Mike's character is so weird. Like
Yeah.
he's actually like omniscient, and he's got powers that like we've just been thinking we've all just thought he was weird this whole time, but like he's actually, I don't know, there was gonna be, yeah, I wanted to like explain his character more, and I definitely had way more for Bree, like way more scenes for Shauna, because I wanted to develop her character more, and really give her like a good storyline. But we
Part, yeah.
ended up, she was supposed to be in like most of the rest of the movie, but there was just there's just no way to make it happen. But I am happy with.
I honestly feel like you should. I mean, it definitely. I don't know. I'm just like you should definitely make like a Remember the Beast, like this new like
Alternate.
directors, yeah, like alternative edition or like
The Snyder cut.
the Snyder cut, yeah, but
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with
Yeah,
Snyder.
Remember the Beast, the Snyder cut. Everyone's like, release the Snyder cut. Yeah, Shane had suggested that we like go back and refilm the stuff that we couldn't do, and I was like, that's not a bad idea because Bree will still be there. I mean, obviously Shane and I
Okay.
won't, but I don't know. Clay, I don't know where he's might not even be around at that point anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that it the whole, obviously like the coronavirus stuff sucks, but it forced me to shorten the movie a lot, and it is still like an hour and 16 minutes long. So if nothing had gone wrong and we stuck with everything that was in the original script, it probably would have been almost 2 hours long. And my laptop was barely even like getting it exported as it was. I was like, I can't believe that this thing is still even running, because it was like, and I was like, sometimes it just wouldn't
It's like
export it.
just do it, baby. Just
I was like, come on, just one last time, you got this. But yeah, it was a weird process, but it was like, it was
But
def-
yeah, but it's like at the end of the day, like I almost feel like that's such an interesting part of like these like making processes, like for
yeah,
things where it's like it's you have what you have, and like
right,
I feel like you still worked with what you had, and I feel like it's almost like in a way you allowed by like keep going and like unfortunately having to cut things. Like I still feel like the stuff that you kept and like the things that like happened, like it was able to almost be influenced by
right,
like what's
yeah,
going on now. And like I said, like I think that there's something to like the end and like your character and like the him being by himself like in isolation, like and like living with the consequences of his mistakes. Like it's just like that kind of stuff where
right.
like it wouldn't, I don't know if it's gonna be like that exactly, but like it definitely was like I remember like being like a twist that I almost thought was like, see, I didn't know like anything really like about it. So it was like for me I was like the twist was almost like one of those like, oh, this is like a really like cool like kind of like almost like shock of like a I almost felt like I also was thinking that the like Cloverfield movies had like a bit of
Oh,
an influence in that end, because I
yeah.
was just thinking, I mean, I've because I oh wait, actually, I did watch that other Cloverfield movie. I
Oh,
forgot what it was called.
10 Cloverfield
10
Lane.
Cloverfield Lane,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
The
love
one
that
with
movie.
John Goodman.
Yeah. He's so good.
He's
He's a
amazing in it. I mean,
good
he's
man.
amazing anyway. Yeah, but like I was thinking, the kind of like desperation and like, being alone and like just like, having a lot of like the like tension of like having something like that is like happening, like a disaster or something, and like you're like after, I don't know, just those kind of things, like, and where you like find people
Right.
is always so interesting, because like, like you're in this state where like you're like the things that you're thinking about and like the way that you're thinking are like more dire, and so then it's almost more like genuine in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I could see that for sure. It's um definitely like the I liked the way that we like it wasn't the way that I wanted it to end necessarily, but it's kind of left things open to like explore that world a little bit more. And I've been writing a lot of like I've had so much time to write that I've been writing a lot of things that like they kind of share the I heard a noise, I don't know what it was. They kind of share the like surrealism of the beast, like that kind of like that idea of this world where like weird things happen, but it's never really that weird to the characters, which I
Yeah.
think is like an essential part of the beast.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I think that like I don't know. I'm like kind of toying around with this idea of maybe telling some other stories that don't have anything necessarily to do with the beast, but they take place in the same world. Um, Potentially,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
not something where anyone would have to like see all the beast movies to understand, but just something like because I like that kind of stuff when there's like a shared universe and there are some
Yeah.
like things that come together. If it's almost like a reward for watching the other movies, like
Yeah.
you're like, oh wait, I get that because I watched that movie and that's a reference to that. But if you don't catch it, it doesn't like take you out of the whole other movie that you're watching.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. And now it's like, you know, graduating with a film degree is like weird enough already. But now in the middle of a pandemic, it makes it even more daunting because you're like, all right, now what? Like, you know, but
Ooh.
I'm not that worried about it, but it's still something that I'm like I got to figure out what exactly I'm doing here. So,
Do you have anything planned as of
I mean,
now, or like you have ideas about things,
I
or?
mean, I have some ideas for my own projects that I want to work on. I mean, I need to find like I need to look for like a job that I can make some money at. That's like my first priority. But the other thing, I kind of wish that they would have talked to us more in, at BW about like to the film majors about like pitching ideas and like
Hmm.
the process of that, because it's like I would love to. I have a ton of ideas that like it would be cool to pitch to some, but I don't even.
Yeah,
That's the
any
thing. It's
studios or like yeah.
right, and I get worried about like in the film industry can be so like cutthroat that I get concerned about like you know pitching things to studios, and like I get worried about like ideas getting stolen or like that kind of thing, or
Yeah.
and I don't know, because it would be cool to get something like officially made, but I couldn't tell you the process of that because nobody ever talked to us about it at
Yeah, I feel
because
like the entrepreneurial aspect of it, or just like
right.
the business side of it. Yeah, no, it's interesting that it wouldn't be a part of that at all.
You'd think that they would talk about that in like Capstone or something, which they sort of kind of touched on it in Capstone, but I most of Capstone was like, they talked about like building your brand and like that whole thing, but I'm like, well, but your brand means nothing if as a film person if you're not like if you don't have any way to get these things made, like,
Yeah.
you know, at least that's my opinion. But
Oh
um,
yeah, that's yeah.
so I don't know, but I have like some ideas for things, but I just need to look into I just need to look into some stuff really, and I'm also trying to find like some like little things that I can, maybe like some voice acting work that I can just do from home and get paid.
Oh yeah.
I've been buying a lot of like instruments, and teaching myself to play a lot of instruments. So now I've got that. I did a lot of the music with, I got one of those synths that we
Oh,
used.
it's so cool.
It was that opening theme was like, I was like that.
I love that. Yeah, no.
I was like, ooh. I remember like recording that song and playing it for, I think for Shane, and he was like, dude, people are gonna go, people who have seen the first two movies are gonna be like, wait, this is the Beast. And I'm gonna, like, because it's such an intense opening theme, and then it goes right into Clay and I in the car, like in the Beast, about like talking about something not serious at all.
Yeah, I think what was the first one? It was about wasn't it about his like summer dating and the Taco Bell.
Yeah, the Taco Bell sauce. Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Well, how have things been in Boston?
They've been pretty well. I mean, I've been mostly home. Like I said, like first week of March was my last week of classes. Like we ended with midterms, and then we had our spring break, and then we never came back in person.
Right.
But we had online classes, and those went fairly well. I mean, it's just hard. It was definitely difficult, like trying to stay motivated and like still read for all my classes and all that.
Right.
But I still like a good time like throughout all the classes, and I really like the faculty of my program. Like that's like part of the biggest reason I went to BU and like this specific counseling program. Like the professors and like faculty are like really great, and so like they were still able to make it really great like throughout this process, and they were really understanding. Um and then over the summer um and then finals was kind of, I think it was kind of challenging, to be honest. Like having finals like at home was just like a
Yeah.
weird process. Like the stress of like finals and everything that was going on was like happening, but like I was just here the whole time. So it was kind of like hitting
Right.
me like at weird moments, and like um and then I've been trying to like since summer like started, like I've been trying to just like I've been essentially doing a lot of like walking around. Like I've been trying to like explore just more of
Yeah.
the area, like in terms of nature places. And then I've been I've been reading the Understanding Movies textbook like off and on. The one from like the film and culture class
Oh
at
yeah. Yeah.
BW. I never actually read it during
Me,
class,
me
so
neither. I don't think I've
so I've
read a
been
single
reading.
textbook, which could be why I always think that I'm gonna fail my classes.
Which it's good. It's a good probability. It could be a good understanding why. But I've been like slowly trying to read more of it, and like I I had the idea of like wanting to watch more movies, and like I haven't watched like a lot, but I've been trying to start watching more. I actually just watched. I finally watched Onward,
Oh, how was it?
the one. It was great.
I feel like it came out, and then I didn't hear anyone say anything about it after it came out. Oh,
Can you
did I
hear
lose?
me?
Yeah, oh yeah, I lost you for a second.
Oh, I
All of a
literally.
sudden, your face was like you were looking at me, and it froze on you like this. So I said something, and then I thought that you were just staring at me like,
I
and I was
thought
like,
that you
what?
were.
Because it came out, and nobody said anything about it, and you were just like, and I was so confused. I thought I pissed you off with that statement. I was like, oh, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean
I
it.
thought that you were like I thought you were like I thought because
Yeah,
you were still.
it was
And I
very
was
dark
like, oh, I
because
guess you don't want to hear what I'm saying.
it was just a still frame. Like it looked like you were still just like. I was very confused for a good chunk of time there.
Oh
But
my god.
anyway, you said you watched it, but that was the last thing I heard. I said,
Yeah, no, I was just saying like I thought it I thought it was great. Like I think it was such an amazing like such like a nice fantasy adventure just like underneath it all, but like I really, I mean, like the biggest thing that I love about Pixar is like the way that they'll always have heart in their movies, and
Yeah.
like Onward, like the way the way in which it has heart, and like what and like and like the development of like the characters like throughout, especially like the brothers, like their relationship is so well done, and like it's just, I mean, it's like, like you've seen Inside Out, right?
No, I still haven't seen Inside Out.
Um,
I will
well,
watch it
but it's
eventually.
like that, but
I
it's
have
like,
Disney
like,
Plus now though, so I can watch it.
so you need to watch that. You just watch all Pixar,
I will.
and then get back to me. But it's just like they did a really great job of like having almost like a modern fantasy. Like that was kind of like the entire point, and there was a lot in it of like essentially like this is a fantasy world, but like in the modern times.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's like people like, for example, like fairies, like they don't fly anymore because they can drive now, and so
Right.
like they don't fly, like, so things don't fly as much anymore because they can drive, and like magic doesn't need to exist because there's electricity now. So like it had a lot of those concepts which were
That's
so
interesting.
cool, like to yeah, it was really cool, like that stuff. And then there's a lot, and like the whole story is like about um the two brothers, and the younger brother never knew their dad, or like knew him only for a little bit, but like the dad passed away before like the movie started. And the whole like, I think the whole like premise of the story is that like they figure out a way to like bring him back for a day, and so
That I do.
they go on a quest to be able to do that. And it's it's like what the actual like emotional like climax and like catharsis of the movie, like what it ends up being is so amazing. Like because it's not what you think, or it's like you kind of think it, but like it just kind of like sneaks up on you
Right.
instead. Like it's just, I really ended up liking it a lot. Like I want to like say more, but like I don't want to spoil it for
Yeah,
you,
I,
because
I,
like I
I will
really
watch
feel
that.
like I think you should watch it because it's also like Chris Pratt and like Tom
Yeah.
Holland like are so good off of each other. Like
That's right. I
it's
forgot that
great.
they did the voices.
Oh, it's like, I mean, Chris Pratt, like his voice, and like I feel like the character's almost like him, like, or at
Right.
least more like Andy, like from Parks and Rec for me. But like it's like Chris Pratt, like it's like almost like his own caricature now. But like I
Yeah.
love him, and he brings a lot of heart to it. Like because I think like I really feel like you need to watch
I
it.
will.
It's
I
only
will.
about like I mean like I especially like all our talks last year, and I was just thinking like two brothers and their mom, and that's their house, and they have a pet, like
Right.
they have a pet dragon, like so it's like i I mean it's a a little bit different, obviously.
No, I have a pet
Like
dragon.
yeah, yeah. Oh oh yeah, that's what
Yeah,
burned down your house the first time.
exactly. That was one of my assignments for class.
To get
Raise a
one.
pet dragon
Raise
in my medieval culture class.
medieval
Um,
medieval 101.
medieval 101. Yeah.
And then
No,
the
yeah.
other movie I saw. Oh yeah, you can keep. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that, yeah, I have been meaning. There's a ton of movies that I've been meaning to watch. And you'd think that I have literally all the time in the world to watch them right now. But then when I sit down to watch a movie, I'm like, I'll do it another time. And then like I
Oh,
don't. And then
literally, yeah.
but I have watched a decent amount. Oh, what did I don't know. Some good ones and some bad. But I watched this movie called it wasn't during quarantine, but it was a couple. It was, I mean, it was early. I think it was maybe like February. I watched this movie called Under the Silver Lake, with Andrew Garfield, um, and it's one of my favorite movies now.
Oh
Like,
wow.
yeah, it's A24. There's a bug flying around. It's A24.
Which is
Um,
always perfect.
right, but the thing about this movie is that like they didn't have a lot of faith in it when it was being advertised, so they kind of um pulled it from like or not pulled it, but like it didn't get a very wide release, like so,
Yeah.
but it is so good, and so nobody talks about it. I haven't heard anyone talk about it, but I recommended it to Clay, and and Clay and Tori watched it together, I think, and Clay was like, dude, that movie was so good. I was like, I know, like I can't believe nobody discusses it, but
I'll have to check that out.
I mean, it's got a lot of like it's very, I guess it's very sexual at times, but it's not in like it not like you're like ugh. I mean, like it's done in like a tasteful way.
Yeah.
It's very blunt, I guess is the best way to put it. Like they're not tiptoeing around anything. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
but it's very surreal. So it's right in like it's very much in my like sense of humor and like imagery and like the way that the dialogue is written. It kind of poses this sort of, to me at least, it poses this sort of idea of like, do we really understand anything that's going on around us in the media, in like just in the world around us? But also like so it kind of to me presented that question, but then it also presented the idea of like, and if not, does it even matter? Does it even matter? Like, does it really matter if we like? Do we need to understand everything around us, or if we did, would it drive us crazy? Will we drive ourselves crazy trying to understand everything? And at a time in my life where I am feeling like confused, a lot of things are changing, and like it was a movie that really, it just totally, I was like, yeah, okay, I can get on board with that. Maybe I shouldn't try and understand everything so much. Maybe I should just chill. and so like the past couple of like months, since I watched that movie, I've been very much just like, you know, not about everything, but just I've tried to be more like, just maybe I just don't need to, that I don't get that, and I don't need to, like, so I don't know. It was definitely, it's also the cinematography. It's beautiful. It's really like the colors. I think that I think that you would like it. I'm hesitant to like say like you're gonna love this movie to anyone really.
Oh yeah.
Want to like talk it up and then have them be like, that movie sucked.
You're
like,
a piece of
yeah, like, you son of a bitch, how dare you make me watch that? That was the worst movie I've ever seen. But yeah, I think it's really good, and I wish that it got more. I wish that it got more attention for, because I don't even. Oh, it's the same guy that directed It Follows.
Interesting, and I heard he did really well with that.
Right, It Follows is a great horror movie, and this movie isn't really a horror movie. There are moments that are a little eerie, I guess, but it's not. It's really, it's like a mystery comedy kind of thing. It almost feels like a Hitchcock movie to me.
Oh.
And I think that there's a lot of Hitchcock influence in it. It's got an interesting feel, really, really unlike the way that it just stuck with me, unlike most movies. It kind of like I think about it regularly, where especially in like my writing now and like my storytelling. I've gotten to a place where I'm like incorporating some more surreal things and like things where like maybe I know what it means, but not trying to explain anything too much. That's what I think. The movie does a good job with like presenting ideas, but not telling you this is what this is. This is what this means. It kind of lets you think about it, which I can definitely appreciate. So, but I recommend it. I think you might enjoy it. It's free on Amazon Prime, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
I was gonna say if it's streaming anywhere, okay.
Yeah, it's free on there because I think most people don't. It's not like a sought after movie, so I think most people might stumble. I just stumbled across it. I watched the trailer and I went, "That looks really good. Why have I never heard of that?" But it's got that A24 feel to it. Like it's just such a. I love. All of their movies have such a unique feeling.
I was gonna say, yeah. No, keep going.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say like the other movie that I recently saw was 20th Century Women, which is also from A24.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's on Netflix actually.
Oh.
And it's like the story of like this mother and son, like, and like the mom has been divorced for a long time, and she's like trying to raise her son in like the late 70s, and it's like, and she also like has like these like two other women that will like essentially like live in the house too. Like she kind of like has like her rooms rented out to people, and like one other like man that lives in the house too. And it's just like it's a very great, just like people driven movie. Like it was so I loved it, and the soundtrack was cool. And I feel like if you watch a trailer, like you really like it. Like
Okay.
I really like the trailer.
Oh,
I
I
actually
love a
just
good
still keep
trailer.
watching. Yeah, I know. I still just keep watching the trailer. But
Yeah, there's a
that's like
movie.
I would just rewatch the trailer, and then I was like, I need to sit down and just watch this freaking movie. Like I need to just do it. And then I ended up doing it, and I was very glad I did. Like the cinematography was also really good, and I love Greta Gerwig. She's actually in it. And
Oh,
Annette Bedding, she's a great actress. She's in it. And Elle Fanning is like is like the
yeah.
youngest girl. um it's just like one of those movies where it's like each person is like so complex and like nuanced and interesting, and like no person in that movie was like a caricature. Like each person was like a lived in person that like had their own story, and like their own, well, like their own history, and then their own like story, like literally throughout like the film almost, even though like they're all like connected almost, like it's just one of those movies where it's like it also felt very like there would be like voiceover sometimes of like, and this is like this person, and like she was born in this year, and like her mom like was it, and like just talk about like them growing up, and like the things that they experienced, and like what led to like who they are now. And like it did that for each person, and
That's
like you just also get different perspectives. Like it's like one of those movies where like it actually got nominated for best original screenplay, and like it definitely makes sense why. Like
oh,
I never heard of that director, but like every time I read anything online about this movie after I watched it, everything was like comparing it to like a film he made before, which was about like his dad. Like, and so I feel like I read all these things that were saying like this movie was about like him and his mom, and another one was about him and his dad.
oh,
So like
okay.
very interesting director, and I think he wrote it too. Like I think he directed and wrote, or like at least co-wrote.
Yeah,
Um, but it's like
I
it's like in Southern California, like in the like 1979, and so like
okay.
it also just has like a very like specific like vibe too, like throughout the movie. Like it was a cool movie. Like I really ended up liking it too.
Did you see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
No, I
Oh, you
haven't.
haven't seen it? It's good. I like it. It's hard to. I don't really know how to describe. It's a good movie. But it's like I don't know if Tarantino's gotten to a point where like he actually needs someone to tell him like this is too long or like if that makes sense. But like it's so long and like it's I don't know. It's because it's a good movie, but it's like I think I don't have a problem with a long movie. I do wonder sometimes with his stuff where I'm like, is this scene a necessity? Or did you just think it was fun like to have this
Yeah.
scene. That's my thing with Tarantino
That's
is
what
that
I've actually heard. I've actually heard that from other people about like it's not just like that it is long, but that it just felt long too. Because
right,
like 3 hour move, I mean like Interstellar, for example, like that movie like flies by, and that's like
right,
almost like 3 hours too. But it's just
yeah,
like different movies. Like it just depends on how the director like does it. And yeah, like that's interesting. I hear that from other people
right.
about it.
I watched a couple maybe like a month ago. I watched like an old western. Um, oh, what was it called? I can't remember what it was called, but it was like 3 hours and 15 minutes long. But it was so interesting. I was interested the entire movie. The characters were really cool. And I'm not even a big western guy, but like I just thought it was really a good movie. And I also watched. I've watched two westerns in the last month because I also watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, I
Finally,
watched that one.
which I was
Oh,
like,
it's a
oh, it was
great.
so good. And
That last, I think the end of that movie,
yeah,
I'll never forget it. Like with
it's
the
beautiful.
graves and yeah.
Yeah, I loved both of these westerns were like over 3 hours long, but I never felt, and there was never a point in either of them where I was like, "Well, is this almost over?" But I find
Yeah.
myself, I saw it Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in theaters, and I was like, "Oh, is this good? It's a good movie." Tarantino,
But that's not what you want to feel.
right? Like Tarantino makes a great film, but I'm just like, I found myself like halfway through. I was like, is this almost done? Like, where's this story going? I guess I kept thinking to myself, like, where? And I will say that I think that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has one of the best payoffs of a Tarantino movie without spoiling anything. Um, but like, there's almost no blood throughout the whole movie. I mean,
Wow.
it's like his least violent movie until it's not, I guess, is the best way I can describe it. Like you're the whole time I remember going like, where's the blood? I mean, not that I'm not like,
Where
I'm
is
not like
it?
kill, but like,
Kill.
I was like, I because I knew it was Tarantino. I was like, what's going on? Like, why is this so? I kept thinking this is so calm. It's too calm for a
Oh,
Tarantino
like so
movie.
you're like, yeah, you're on like the edge of your seat waiting for it.
Sort of, yeah. I was like, when is this gonna? And then eventually it does, and you're like, oh, okay, now it's a Tarantino movie. But it's in like the last 15 minutes, and it's like a 3 hour long movie. I don't think there's a drop of
Wow.
blood. But that's the thing, is that I think he shows a lot of restraint in the movie. But I found um the main character is Leonardo DiCaprio. Really, there's parts where it switches to Brad, but I thought Brad Pitt's character was much more interesting than Leo's character. So I wanted more out of the Brad Pitt character, but there was so much of the movie focused on, and Leonardo's a good actor. It's just like I was way more interested in finding out information about Brad Pitt's character, because he was kind of mysterious, and like I was like, I want to know more about this guy,
Yeah.
but he's not the main character, so I don't get to learn any more about this guy. But I kind of hope that maybe Tarantino will do a similar thing to what he did with Hateful Eight, and what Netflix did with, like, they released the extended cut, but they released it as like 4 hour and a half long episodes, like, so it's almost split up into, it's almost more like a mini series. So
Interesting.
if they did that with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, if they released like the director's cut but on Netflix or something and split it up like that, I think that could be cool, because I always think that Tarantino would be really great at making like a mini series, like a one-off story that's like 10 episodes long. And because then he can explore. I feel like he wants to explore these worlds in his movies, but he doesn't have time, because
Yeah.
he's got to tell a story, and focus on that. So, and you can only do so much in 3 hours. So like, I think if he had like a show or something, that would be really
Yeah.
cool. I feel like he would excel in that area. Maybe
Yeah,
he'll
and I
do that.
think and I feel like that's like, well, I was gonna say that kind of like what happens like with a couple of like the new like the short like miniseries that have come out like in general. But yeah, I think I agree with that. Like it's definitely like it's such a more like I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is. Like it's definitely like a more accessible version of or an accessible way of being able to like explore more and
Right,
like explore people for sure while still having an overarching story. Like so
right,
many of like the great shows like are able to do that. And I mean like yeah, like there's some. I mean, like a lot of like the HBO shows or
yeah,
like a lot of yeah, a lot of like the good mini series like are able to do that really well. So it'd be interesting to see like what really great directors like could do with that too. But I think it's also like part of like the challenge almost is like trying to be able to do that within like a film,
that's
but it's like when you try to, I feel like, but there's still, you can still overextend yourself, and especially like if you don't have like good pacing, or especially like if it's like really bloated or something, like there's so little you can do, or I
right.
don't know.
Right. Yeah. I think Tarantino's so good at he's so good at dialogue, and like I think that where was I going? Oh yeah, I think like he's good at creating characters. I think sometimes he makes too many characters though in one movie, at where he should like I think it Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think I would have liked to see it be a little bit shorter and focus on just one, not Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, but just one of those two guys, or have them be together. Like I wanted to see their interactions together, but they kind of both of them are doing separate things throughout most of the movie, even though they're connected, like they're friends.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt is his stuntman, is Leo's stuntman, and it was like, so they're. I think I would have liked to see either focus on one or have them both together on an like a telling like Pulp Fiction, with Samuel L. Jackson and I totally can't remember.
John Travolta.
John Travolta. The two of them, they play off of each other. So
Yeah.
like I think that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood would have benefited from that more, because there's a little bit of it in the movie, but I think more of that I think that would have been a good call in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know. That's just
Mr.
my humble
Tarantino.
opinion.
You just call him Mr. Tarantino.
Hey, listen, bud. I got an idea for you, Quentin.
He's like, who
Yeah.
is this? How'd you get my number?
He's like, huh? What? I don't make movies for you, Devon.
See, you do.
Now you do. I'm hiring you. I'm so excited for. I hope that Wes's new movie doesn't get delayed with the virus stuff. But I also don't. I probably wouldn't go see it at a theater right now. But I hope that it doesn't. I hope that it comes out in some fashion and doesn't just get delayed, I guess is what I'm saying.
I want to see it in a theater so badly.
Yeah, I would like.
I have not seen a Wes Anderson movie in theaters yet.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, the only one I've seen in theaters was Isle of Dogs. I saw Isle of Dogs.
That was the only one that came. That was the only one that like came out like when I loved his stuff, and it's like. But I never ended up like making it to the theater like to watch it, and like the first time I watched it was with you like in our room, and it's like I wanted to watch that new one so. I mean, like the cast. I mean, I love that. Those are trailers that I like. Yeah. That trailer I rewatch.
I was so like
a lot, like at least once a week. Like I love.
Yeah, I was like, yes. They do such a good job with whoever edits the trailers for Wes Anderson movies. I'm always like, yes. I remember the one for Isle of Dogs made me like, I think I cried during the one for. I was like, this is just the trailer. What? I was like, what? Why is this making me cry? But yeah, the French it's the French
Dispatch.
Yeah, I that one, it didn't make me cry, but I just was like, oh, I'm so.
I loved it. I was so excited for it.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's got one coming out already. It feels like not that long ago that Isle of Dogs came out. Like I'm surprised that he's got one coming out so soon. I guess, but I wonder if
I have my list still.
Oh yeah, I don't have my list. I should have made a list, I guess, before. I
thought we both wrote down. Oh, you probably just don't know.
Yeah, I wrote. I don't even know where I put it though, but yeah, I probably should have. It's my podcast episode, and I probably should have, done the thing that was my idea for the podcast episode.
I was gonna ask, are we? I don't know if like you like cut things or like how it works. I also didn't know if you wanted me to, if I could ask like during this, but I guess I'm already asking. Did we start it yet, or have we been just catching up?
The podcast has started. Yeah, we don't necessarily have to go through our lists.
Yeah,
I think it might be more effective even to just talk about our favorite Wes Anderson movies.
I love that.
In no particular order necessarily, but just to discuss.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just just casual. Would you like to start off?
Yeah. Well, I can just start off like last year when we
Oh yeah,
watched all of them
that's
was
for listeners, I guess, or viewers.
yeah.
Jan and I watched all the Wes Anderson movies. I think all of them. Maybe we missed
We
Rushmore.
did.
Did we miss? Did we
Oh,
watch Rushmore?
well, no, we
We had both
didn't.
seen it. We had both
We'd
seen it
both
already.
seen Rushmore, yeah.
But we watched every single one except for Rushmore. But
But
we
we
saw
had both seen it already, yeah.
exactly. So technically it didn't it didn't matter
Yeah.
then. Anyway,
It did matter
continue.
to us. Yeah, but so watching all of them was so amazing. Like that whole process that we
Yeah.
went through, um and especially like rewatching some of like the ones that I'd only seen once before, or like even watching some for the first time ever, like it just made me realize how much I love this director, like how amazing of a man he is, and like I think that each one of those movies is such an amazing journey into his mind. Like, you know, I think that his characters, like his worlds, like his stories, like are just so unique and they're so vibrant. Like I think that's my favorite part of it. It's like just even like in color, just in general, like of his movies, but then just even like the depth of the characters and like how unique each of them are. Like
Right.
I think I think that my favorite one is Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah. That's a great
But
movie.
I think that I also like really close second is the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah.
And it's like I think like when I think about like what I'm saying about like the vibrantness, like I think the Grand Budapest Hotel is like an amazing example of that.
That's
And
like prime Wes Anderson right there. That's like
I think so. I
the
think
perfect when I think of his style, I
yeah.
feel like he perfected his style in that movie in particular.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like French Dispatch is going to be sort of similar. I feel like
Oh,
it's going to have a
I
similar
definitely
feeling.
feel that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I'm excited for. Anyway.
Oh yeah, me too. And but it's like I even thinking when you're gonna say I know what your favorite is.
Oh yeah.
But like when I think about your favorite too, like I just think that there's so many great things to love about each one of them. But for me, well, you can say what your favorite is, and then we can just bounce
Well,
off each other for a little bit.
yeah, I mean Jan, you already know, but yeah, I mean Darjeeling Limited is to me is such a beautiful movie. And a lot of people I feel like Wes Anderson, like people don't like that one, but
Hmm.
I don't get that because I think that it's one of his most like it's still got that Wes Anderson feeling, but it's also very grounded in like
Yeah.
in a very like realistic um in like a Wes Anderson realistic way, I guess. Like I love the way that movie explores very subtly the relationships between the three brothers and how like it's such a natural progression of like where they end up or where they start
Oh
and where they
yeah.
end up, and like as we slowly find out more things about them, like that's
Hmm.
I love the pacing but it's still got that Wes Anderson humor.
Yeah.
The delivery of the lines is very like I love the that Adrian Brody's character just takes Owen Wilson's belt and he's like, is that my belt? He's like, yeah, can I have it? He's like, no. Like what, like of course you can't just have my belt. But then later he gives him the belt as a gift. And like it's like
Mm.
I just love and just that journey. And like I as someone who has a brother and like that um like that just that brotherly like relationship or the relationship between brothers is something that I think someone who doesn't have a brother might not, or a sibling really, they
Yeah.
might not get that feeling. But like I could understand that kind of the arguing, the maybe a little bit of rivalry, but like deep down you care so much
You're
about.
connected.
Right, you're connected by family, like
Yeah.
the like by and I just love that. And there's that moment where they're sitting in the back of that well, I don't even know what you call it, that tiny little car. It's like a little
Was it the hearse? No,
Well, they're in
it
they're
wasn't that part.
it cuts from them sitting in the back of that little thing to them in the back of like the cab or the limo or whatever, going to get the, however, the day of their dad's funeral. And I love
Yeah.
that cut is so the way that it cuts right to that. And that scene, it just tells you everything that you need to know in a very like quick but well thought out way. It's just to me, it's perfect Wes Anderson storytelling. And yeah,
Mhm.
that Darjeeling will forever be one of my all-time favorite movies. Like just such a big inspiration for me. Like I remember
Oh
watching that
yeah.
the first time and going, like I already liked movies at that point, was already writing things at that point, but watching that I
Mhm.
was just like that I I can't even I don't e, that's crazy how good that movie is, and yeah,
Yeah.
so Darjeeling is my definitely my all-time favorite. And I think my second favorite would actually, after watching it again I think I watched it even another time since I watched it with you, but Bottle Rocket. I actually really,
Oh yeah.
really, really like Bottle Rocket, and maybe it's because you're just seeing like that you're seeing a very early version of him starting to develop his style, but it feels so. There's kind of a rawness to Bottle
Yeah.
Rocket, but it also had that. Do you remember how hard we laughed? At, what
I
are you doing?
still laugh really hard at it.
What are you doing sitting down?
What are you doing?
What are you doing sitting down? Get up! They're robbing that place. That
Oh
I
my! And he's just sitting there, like
yeah.
he's like, just. That will forever be. I think that's like one of the funniest like jokes of like. Oh
That
my god! Like the
was
visual, like the acting is so good. Oh my god, it was
so
so
funny,
good.
so funny. I could not believe how hard, because I didn't even remember. Like I
I
had watched
couldn't stop laughing. I was laughing at that for like days, I
right.
think.
Yeah, I had watched that one time before watching it with you, but I did not remember that line at all. And that it made me laugh. So I think you laughing at it was also funny, but like the line it was hilarious. It was so like out of nowhere. That was
Like,
yeah, that was really funny.
I feel like, so what I feel like was so amazing about that line and like why it's so funny, and like I think overall like all of his movies is like I think kind of like what you were mentioning earlier about like the surrealness of like these are still people, and like
Right.
like, and like, they're people that are kind of like grabbed out of like whatever world like they're, or like whatever life they've had,
Yeah.
into this circumstance of like robbing, I think it was like a finery or like,
I
something
don't
like
even know.
that, and yeah, I don't even know what it was, but like being in that scenario, it's like they're still them. And so like of course he's
Why are
like
you sitting
he's
down?
himself, yeah, and he's yeah, and so, like,
And
and I think
Owen
that's just.
Wilson too
Oh,
has that
Owen Wilson, yeah, it's
voice.
he and Wes definitely like have that relationship that makes him so much funnier. Like, and so like, but see, for me, like Moonrise is my favorite because I think like the whimsical, like innocent, like
Yeah.
adventure that like that the main character goes through, like the kid, and just like, and again, like every character in that movie is so like is so rich. Like even people like um
Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis. Yeah, yeah. I know. I love that you were thinking. I was thinking about him.
Yeah,
I
because
knew you were
you would
like
never
his
think of him
character.
being in a
Like,
Wes Anderson movie. Like
oh yeah, and he brought such a like nice like nuanced performance, kind of like, like I just really feel like he could have acted in such a like, I think he, kind of did bring like a kind of stoned, like, like stone like he personality and like
right,
characteristics, and um but at the end of the day, like I think he, like, you kind of notice like he kind of just had this like sad life, and like had this kind of like, almost like you can just imagine, like, exactly what the rest of his life looks like, and you can almost imagine like what it was.
right,
But then I think it's like that. I feel like that's also like how Wes likes to play with characters, is like even people like the scout leader, like Edward
right.
Norton's character, and
Oh
like,
yeah,
and well, even like Tilda Swinton. I mean, like, it's like all of them, like the way that they play, like they're just like they're like lived in people, and like,
right.
I think especially like the kids too. Like I think the way that they carried the story and like the innocence of it, like I still feel like one of my favorite scenes is like when they finally end up at that like cove, like and
Yeah.
like the music, like I think like that campy like cinematography and just overall the colors in that movie are
Yeah.
phenomenal. Like such a fall vibe and like I mean in general like his cinematography is always so spot on, but I think especially like in that movie it's just like and his pacing like all kind of communicate the same amount of like whimsical, like youthful like story and I think it just progresses and like goes more like fantastical like as it goes and I feel like it's so it like just has this emotion to it like like when it start like and but what I also love about it too is that it also takes its time when it wants to like talk about characters or like be about the characters like in its flashbacks
Right.
like and I think that's what like that's like my favorite Wes like and I also just love like personally like in movies like flashbacks are like my favorite because
Oh
I
yeah.
think because there's so many different ways that you can do them and like because it's pretty much infinite because like it's not kind of in the realm of like the story you're telling so any way that you want to tell like your flashback you can either tell like in the same vein or you can like have it be different in some way but I think the way that like Wes does it like the kind of quick and you have to notice like the subtle ways that he's communicating it's a flashback like if somebody has a scar normally but doesn't have it like like those kind of
Yeah.
subtle ways like I feel like Darjeeling did it so well when it did it. Like the way that Grand Budapest like has time, like like the two storylines going on,
Oh yeah.
and just like Moonrise too. Like when you're learning about like like the girl like Susie, and you're learning about like her family and like or like when they first met and like the way that they're catching up with each other
Oh
with the
yeah.
letters, like stuff like that where it's
That's
like
so
it's
good.
just so lived in, like and it's
What
so
kind of
physical
bird
and
are you?
yeah, yeah, and he's like, I'm a this, and like that
Yeah.
girl, she's like, I'm this, and I'm this. He's like,
Yeah.
no, what are
Now, what
you?
kind of bird are you? Yeah, that's such a good moment. That makes me go,
And I
oh.
mean, yeah, and it's those kind of things where it's like so subtle, but
Hmm.
it's so unique, and it like it really just like encapsulates like these are not your typical kids, and I think all of like Wes's movies have always been about like the non-typical, like
Yeah.
kind of more I don't know how to
Right.
describe it, like odd, like
Yeah, like
but
precocious kid.
yeah,
Yeah. I think
yeah,
too that he does such a good job with creating characters that are really flawed.
yeah,
But you get but he writes them in a way that you understand them, which is important with writing a character that's flawed like that because it's so easy to just write a character that like, oh, this guy's an asshole, and you go,
yeah,
all right, yeah, all right, he's an asshole. But like Wes Anderson, when of his characters is an asshole, he gives you enough that you're like, but they're not totally an asshole. There's a reason, and the one
yeah,
movie that I think his weakest movie with that is Steve Life Aquatic. I
yes,
think that's his weakest. But I still I go back and forth with that movie, wondering if Steve Zissou was even supposed to be likable at all, or if he really was just trying to write a character that's not likable. But there's still just a tiny, tiny bit that makes him likable, but just
yeah.
not in the same way that his other characters have been written, since then.
Yeah. And
But
I think and I think too kind of like similar to what you're saying too and like to go off of that it's like it's not just that they're even just assholes but it's like I think he also really works to make his characters like three-dimensional and like works to make sure that they have like a history to them as well and that's what I really like about like giving um like background to people because I think you can't understand people unless you understand them in context. Like I think that's such an important part of like people and especially like of characters in films when you want them to be like people, unless like you're trying to like have them be characters, but then it's not as good. But yeah,
right,
like I think like I agree with you, like and we talked a lot about Life Aquatic and I think that when you like don't know like where you want your like character exactly to go, or like when I feel like I definitely got the sense of like it's so hard to even remember like the exact
Well,
things in that movie, but I just
I
remember
think
that it lost it a little bit of like wanting to it to be like about him and like about
yeah.
like this kind of like this relationship that he didn't have like with I think his father,
Well, that's what I was
or
gonna
like that
say.
with like that mentor, like
Yeah,
and it's just like stuff like that
Esteban.
where yeah.
Esteban. Well, I think with I think what going off of what you're saying, I think that is the problem with Life Aquatic is that they've got these sort of very very subtle things about Steve Zissou, like, and I could be misremembering. I don't remember him ever directly talking about his own father, but I
Yeah.
don't. I could be not remembering that properly. Maybe there is a scene where, but from my recollection of it, I don't remember him ever actually directly mentioning like, I never got along with my father. But he says something like, because I hate fathers and I never
Oh
wanted to be
yeah.
one. But there's
Yeah.
not. I think for me, for that movie, where that movie lacks is that there needs to be, if you're going to tell a story about a man who finds out that he has a son, but then is afraid to be a father to his son because he maybe had a strain. We need to see or learn
Yeah.
something more about his relationship with his actual dad. I mean, I think
Yeah.
from what I remember, I don't remember him talking about it. Maybe he did, but I think it's assumed that like his dad probably wasn't even around. I just
One
don't.
and I feel like, I feel like it's almost even in the way that I mean you can remember so much of like the other films and like catch
Yeah.
on to like these things of like um the other films that he does like well, like and I feel like I don't know if it's just a problem with our memory or
Maybe.
like
Yeah.
but I honestly think that even if in the way that we remember it, like it doesn't nothing really stuck out to us of like an explanation or like anything that we really learned about his relationship with his father, like that's important that we didn't, because I think
Right.
what's so amazing about the other like film, like his other films, is like that we really understood and like really did learn about the relationships and got such a good understanding of them, even like in like Royal Tenenbaums or like Bottle Rocket, like we got such a great understanding of like the family dynamics of like the places each person was at, and
Right.
like or if we didn't, it was pretty intentional about
Yeah.
that because it wasn't about them or whatever. But yeah, I think that when he did it well, which is the thing of most of the time, like you get such a great just like of rich amount of understanding of their motivations and their history with like other people in their families or their friends or like their relationships, and like how it plays into like their current situations,
Yeah.
which
Even
are always interesting.
I even think Fantastic Mr. Fox does a very good job of like presenting us with a character, and we immediately like understand his flaws, and like and like we get him as and he's an animated character, but I understood more of what was going on in Fantastic Mr. Fox than I did in The Life Aquatic, and that like
Yeah.
that one of those movies is a cartoon, so I thought that I was more invested in the story of Fantastic Mr. Fox than I was in Life
Life
Aquatic.
Aquatic.
Life
Yeah.
Aquatic has some moments that are so good though, which
Oh
is what
yeah.
makes it that I love. The Life Aquatic has one of my favorite Wes Anderson endings of all the movies. I love that shot of them all in the submarine and the
Mm.
shark is swimming around, and um, I can't remember what exactly he says. Something Bill Murray says something, but then they go from that to the end credit sequence of the with the David Bowie song,
Yeah.
the dun, 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 and they're all running down the. I love that
Oh yeah.
that moment. That's one of my favorite Wes Anderson endings. But the rest of the movie, just I know that we talked about it a lot, but yeah, just always every time I've seen it, it leaves me like I'm like, what what's missing here? I still can't quite put put my finger on it. I think it's for me. I think it's partly the from my recollection of it. I think it's partly not knowing enough about Steve Zissou as a character that
Yeah.
makes that one not stick with me. But I don't
Well,
know.
I think I remember also that this feeling of like, I think that's also sometimes like the characters like didn't take almost themselves seriously, or
Yeah,
like what was like happening, especially in terms of the relationships, like very seriously. Like I remember like Kate Blanchett's character, and like how she interacted with both like him and the like his
yeah,
son, like, and like just like stuff
right.
like that where like I feel like stuff was like happening with it, or like even like his son, I mean, spoiler alert, like dying later, like, you
Yeah,
know, it's like stuff like that where
that
like
moment came out of nowhere
um
too.
it came out of nowhere, and then it just kind of like happened, and like I think I remember like it just didn't have like as much of like a weight, and like I
Right.
think that that means like a lot, you know, that we
Yeah,
didn't essentially have their relationship, or like the importance of like even the importance of like the lack of their relationship as well, and like maybe like the missed opportunities that came from him passing like so early into them knowing each other, like, you know, like
yeah,
just like the kind of that, if I feel like because we both didn't have like this like resonating feeling with it, like I think I can just feel that it didn't have as much of like a depth of emotion to it, and I think that came from like not taking it as seriously almost, because I feel like in Moonrise Kingdom and like in Darjeeling and like in like so many of his other, and like even like Royal Tenenbaums or something, it's like there's so like the things that like are more comedic, or the things that kind of do stand out as like being like not as serious or something, or like aren't like the relationships aren't like,
yeah,
you know, aren't like the depth of like what makes this person so interesting or like captivating or like heartbreaking or something, you know. And I feel like in Life Aquatic it was that.
yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot of times humor in his movies too, it comes through in like it's never like at I don't know how to word it exactly. I feel like his humor usually isn't at the expense of a character. It's usually like
Yeah,
it comes in the way that a character says something, or like or the a lot I think that is it. A lot of times his humor comes through like just the way a line is delivered. It's never like
yeah,
it's
or the
I don't know.
situation, or yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's all, and I don't know that that's necessarily the. I don't know that Life Aquatic necessarily does anything that strays too far from that. But I just think that I just don't feel. I just never felt the characters like you. I think like you were saying, like I never could like identify with any
Yeah.
characters in the Life Aquatic, and maybe it's because of like the location too. Like I don't do any deep sea diving, so I don't know. Like it's such a
Yeah.
which I don't know because I mean like also
Well, yeah, I was gonna say like Darjeeling, like, you know, that's such an interesting location, and but it again, like I feel like, and like you were kind of saying, it's like it really falls on like the characters, and like wanting to like in like having them being so rich, and like, and I think especially even like in Darjeeling, like the way that they played off each other, like the way that you could like feel the tension there, and the way that you understand how each of them related to like their father passing, and like the
right,
difference between like, you know, it's like all those kind of things where it's like you're and like, and the fact that their journey even like throughout the whole movie is always like remembered like throughout, and like even like the emotional journey, like the one that isn't really stated, but it's like, and like even like in Moonrise too, it's like and in so many of them it's like you care about these people. And even like in like I think Grand Budapest is like, you know, it's so interesting because you think like Ralph Fiennes' character, it's like he's such a, again, like flawed person, like you mentioned earlier, definitely, but he still has like his moments where like he, when he is passionate, like he is very passionate about something, and then, and like, you know, even like Get Your Hands Off My Lobby Boy, like it's like,
yeah,
you know, funny, and like the fact that like the punches are funny, you know, but like him saying that and like him actually caring for him like
yeah,
isn't funny, like, you know,
right.
like that is like
There's
something that
depth
is
to it.
like
Yeah,
there's a heart, yeah, and there's a heart to it of like he actually like does care about him, and like, you know, wants the best for him, and like doesn't want him to be treated unfairly, and like in stuff like, and like I think it's stuff like that that like really carries those movies, and and
Yeah.
like really helps to like ground it too. Like I think you like said it really well. Like I think like Darjeeling, like it feels so, and like Bottle Rocket, like they just feel so grounded and like
Yeah.
within the relationships and within the characters. And it's like I feel like because he knows he can do that really well, that's how that's how he's able to have everything else be so like fantastical and crazy and like extravagant,
Right.
like and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, that he always does a good job of, and Life Aquatic, definitely it isn't my favorite, but it's still there. Like, there, what he usually does so well, there's pieces of it still there.
Yeah,
I For sure, but I think that, like, yeah, he always gives you, I think he gives you enough, yeah, enough about a character that, like, you can identify with them, even if they're not in the exact same situation as you, that you're like, I get why this character is doing this, even if maybe I wouldn't
yeah,
do it in that scenario. I understand this character's motivations. I think,
yeah,
that's always important too. And he always, like, and Royal Tenenbaums, I think, is a good example of that too. Like, you get why, the dad just wants his family back, so he pretends to be sick, and like, and then, like, but like, you're like, okay, maybe I wouldn't, like, it's a little outlandish, but it's like,
but that's the point, like,
right,
and
it's
that's what
funny. I
makes it
mean,
so interesting. Yeah,
yeah, it's like, it's such an interesting, um there's such an interesting dynamic between pretty much all of his characters usually. I mean, there's everyone, they're all so, they all have their own motivations. And sometimes there's
hmm,
so many characters in a movie, in one of his movies, and they all have different motivations, but you understand all of the motivations. I think Royal Tenenbaums is probably the best. There's
oh yeah,
like, example of that, because there's so many characters in that movie, and
yeah,
all of them want something different, but it still kind of coincides with, like, the what's going on as a whole. That movie, I think that's probably his darkest one.
oh yeah, it
It's
is.
so good. It's so good.
That's the one I think I need to rewatch the most, because I think I've definitely rewatched Moonrise so many times because I love it, and I think the music's so good too. And
Oh yeah.
and the thing I love too is just like his worlds. Like I think like his like, and they don't exist for that long. Like like they're not franchises. They're not
Right.
like long movies necessarily. Like they're actually fairly short movies. Like of his, like they're, I think almost all of them are like under 2 hours
I would
usually,
say,
which is
yeah.
pretty short. I mean for nowadays I feel like, but it's just like I love his worlds. Like you're in it. Like and just like his like campiness, like his like surrealness, like and I mean like even like for example like in Moonrise, like I love like the way that the weatherman like narrates
Yeah.
things that
Oh
like
yeah.
exists. And then I mean one of my favorite like transitions is like when he's like, it is now this day, and he has like this like he goes to turn on this light and he's there and he's saying it, and then he turns off the light, and in the top you see their boat go along. Like
Yeah, that's right.
that transition, like that setup, like it's just it's just so beautiful because it's so in it, like it's so like beautifully recognized. And like he does that throughout like the entire movie, and he does that like throughout like Grand Budapest as well, and so many of his like and so many of his stuff, and even like Isle of Dogs too. And I mean
Oh
Isle
yeah.
of Dogs and Fantastic Mr. Fox, just like and I mean the stop motion just in general having it is so amazing. And I mean even in then too, having the worlds like be so
Right.
vibrant,
Yeah, absolutely.
bright, and I just love, like I feel like that word is such a great way to describe him. Like I just thought of it now. Well, I thought of it
Maybe
earlier
that's
when I
the word,
mentioned
fiber. Uh,
it.
yeah, I
But
think
yeah,
some of the colors in Isle of Dogs, especially, that is one of his movies that, like, I like Isle of Dogs. It's lower on my Wes Anderson scale, I would say.
yeah,
I mean, it's probably one above. It's probably one above Life Aquatic for me. Um, but it's not that it's a bad movie. I just think that it does lack a little. I think it lacks some of the depth in the characters that his other movies have. I think that
Yeah.
Isle of Dogs focuses more on the world itself,
And like
which I don't.
the story of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the story of the world and like
Yeah.
building that world. But I just think that, like and I love dogs, but yeah, I just think, yeah, Isle of Dogs. I think. Oh, what was I told? I totally just lost my train of thought.
No, it just like it didn't carry as much of like the I think like the weight of the relationships like wasn't
Yeah,
there as much, and it's not like the fault of it's not yeah like you said like it's not that it's a bad movie, but it's just like I think the fact that it was like the relationship between like a child or like just a kid and like his dog, like, I love that, and I don't
oh
think
yeah,
it in any means like isn't as valid or something, but it definitely isn't as rich, like like it's very like rich when you have like three brothers who like each had like such a different like relationship and upbringing like with their father, like it's like there's so many different parts to that, and like
yeah,
and they've each like had just have such different personalities too, and like they
right.
haven't talked to each other, like it's like and it's very human, and so it's like we always I feel like can just find more like captivating things in it. But Isle of Dogs though, it's
Yeah,
like it's like the relationship between like a boy and a dog, and like that I feel like it doesn't it's not even able to almost have as much like I think it's a lot more like wholesome in that, and I think that it's also a lot more like it's a lot less able to like have like the amount of depth that the other movies have.
yeah, I think you're right, and like I feel like there was a lot of potential with Isle of Dogs, and I think that's like my one problem with this, that I think that it's sort of maybe like a Life Aquatic situation, where I think if he had really focused in on,
Mm.
he has like there's so many dog characters in the movie, um but really the one that whose story really matters is the one voiced by Bryan Cranston, which I can't remember the
Oh
dog's name.
yeah,
Chief. Um,
yeah,
and there's like those other dogs, like the one voiced by Edward Norton, and there's a Bill Murray one. But like they spend a lot of time on those dogs, and you start to get to know them, but at a certain point in the movie they kind of just disappear, and then you're almost, and I think that's where that movie loses me, because I think that so many of his movies, they have these rich characters where there's so many characters and you understand each one, and each one sort of gets their story comes to a close in a
yeah,
satisfying way. And I feel like that's one of his movies that really lacks that for me. Like you see what happens to those dogs after everything, but it doesn't it wasn't satisfying to me
yeah,
in either of the times that I've watched it. I think I've only watched it twice, but I don't know. It's a great movie. I think it just up to that point where they like have to go fix they go to like the political meeting, and like
yeah,
that's where that movie I it kind of lost me a little bit. Um, Still great though. I mean, it's not a bad movie by any means
yeah.
because of that. I just think that part sort of takes me out a little bit every time. Um, I don't know. I don't know. But
I don't know.
that's just my the humble opinion of this Hawaiian shirt wearing guy.
Backwards hat wearing,
Backwards hat, Hawaiian shirt wearing, green undershirt wearing, host of a podcast,
beard.
beard donning. Yeah, I can't believe how quickly this grew back. It
Yeah,
hasn't.
it's like I saw that you shaved it, and then it's back
Yeah, I
now.
figured while in quarantine, I might as well try out a new look when there's no stakes. And I was like, yeah, all right, I'm done with that. I just want to grow the beard back now. So it lasted like a couple days, and then I was like, I'll just. I watered it. I planted some seeds, and it grew right back,
Ooh,
as beards do. But all right, yeah, we
good
should probably
stuff.
start wrapping up, just because I'm running low on battery now. So so,
Yeah,
um,
that's all good.
but yeah, I'm gonna do more of these. So I would gladly have you on again as a guest. So
I would
again,
love to. I love it, and like I think it's always so great to just talk about movies. I think
oh
people
yeah,
don't I don't think people talk about them enough. You know, it's interesting.
Definitely.
Like, I think that
You see
I
them,
see, I saw, yeah, like, I think people watch a lot more, but they don't
but they
think
don't
about them as
discuss them.
much more and like do it. Yeah, like they don't kind of like do anything with it more as much.
Right.
Like, I think, like, I watched Lady Bird recently with
Oh yeah.
commentary, and I love Lady. You know how
Yeah.
much,
Oh
and I
yeah.
know how much you love Lady Bird too.
Great movie.
Um, I mean, I love Greta Gerwig is definitely one of my favorite like people in Hollywood. I think in general, but like her commentary, like actually at the end during the credits, she was like, I don't think people just like sit through credits and let like the movies like
Yeah.
digest enough sometimes. And I agree with that so much. And I think like an extension too, just like in general, like movies I feel like just in anything extension TV shows, but let's just stick to movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I think like movies like they enter people and then I think it leaves them too quickly. Like
Yeah.
and I think that so much of like so much of like the really amazing stuff of movies like comes from when you think about it and when you're able to like think about what you were able to get from it, what you think the director was saying about it, and also just thinking like even like when you think about what you liked about it,
Yeah.
you learn about yourself a little bit too. It's like I think for myself, like when I think about like Moonrise Kingdom or like for me like as like my favorite, like I think about that innocence part or about that like being the odd one out and like charting your own course, like things
Right.
like that where it's like I really just resonate with that, and I feel like there's so much to it, and the way he talks about it, like it's just stuff like that. Like I don't think people do that enough with movies,
Definitely.
and I think they just consume it as much as they can because they
Right.
can, and
Well, I think
just leave.
too. I think too that so many movies these days, they just they tell you, they don't give you anything to talk about.
Yeah,
They tell you what to think, which I think which isn't completely bad. I think that's one of the things about going into like you, that is your job. You're telling the audience a story, but and you're in a way you're telling the audience who to root for based on if you're writing it as well. But like I think
yeah,
that a movie does. I don't think that any movie should absolutely 100%. It depends on the movie, but tell you every single thing. Every movie should give you something to discuss, even if even I don't think any movie should withhold things from the audience necessarily, but every movie should give you something to talk about after it's done, even if
yeah,
it's just how did that how did that make you feel. I think a movie has failed if you feel nothing after you watch it, which I've definitely seen my share of movies where I've finished and I go, okay, all right, like I will
okay, like
never,
next, yeah,
right, I will never think about that movie again. Which
yeah,
is disappointing as like, and I know that you get it too as someone who appreciates film and like and that's always disappointing to me because like I watch every movie with the hope that I'll take something away from it,
yeah,
and like, but when I take absolutely nothing away from a movie, I go, man, what a waste of time. Like that sucks that I just
yeah,
wasted my time watching that because like I didn't. No movie should be that way, but there's just some that just there's no heart. Nobody puts any thought. And I
yeah,
feel like that's the problem with some of the film industry, some movies these days. It's just like
yeah,
I do feel like we're getting to a point where there are movies again that give you something to think about, especially with like A24 being around and like becoming a little more mainstream, um
yeah.
with their, and not mainstream, but like they're
Yeah, like
releasing
more in the
movies.
open, like yeah,
Yeah,
distributed more. Yeah,
their movies are gathering some more attention now.
yeah,
um I think that like, yeah, I think we went through a period of time like 2005 to like 2015. I feel like there were a lot of movies that came out that just mean absolutely nothing. Like when I think of that time period, I think of like, I feel like that's when like movies were coming out, which I don't
yeah.
dislike the Transformers movies, but
It's like you're gonna have a
like
lot of angry Transformers fans
yeah, I don't want to piss
commenting.
off the whole. There's going to be like a podcast that responds to this one. Yeah, the anti Devon podcast where he hates Transformers. we got to get him off the internet.
We gotta get him out of here.
We gotta cancel Devon. But the yeah, I think that like there's that kind of period of time. I feel like there's a lot of movies that are just very like not memorable to me.
Yeah.
And but then like starting around like 20, maybe even like 2014, 2015, there started some more movies started coming out that I would be like, that looks really good. And there's more of an emphasis being put on, I think, cinematography now too, which is
Oh
like
yeah.
very,
I
love that. So that's always good to see. But
Oh
but
yeah.
yes, yeah. Anyway, I am going to run out of battery soon, and I don't want to lose this file. So
Okay.
I think we'll have to end it here. But Jan, thanks for coming on to the Shaman's Repose. It was a
Thank you
pleasure
so
having
much
you.
for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you again in the near future. Probably on here. But I'm gonna end the recording here. But I'm not gonna
Okay.
end the meeting.
Okay.
Thanks for watching, everyone. And see you in the next one.